Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Gardener's Shed podcast. In this episode today, guys, we're going to go through the central topic, which is progression. I'll be honest with you, it's one of my favourite buzzwords when it comes to running my business and also my personal life. So I'll talk about both of them towards the end of the episode. First off, we've got quite a bit to get caught up on. We've got 2 weeks worth of chat really. Last week was the guest episode, so Chris come on the podcast and talks about all things Groundsfest, so I'm looking forward to that. I am going to be looking at the Groundsfest Academy, and if I can get to a course on that, I definitely will. I believe education and furthering yourself is the best thing you can do. Not only, as I said, to further yourself, but further your business. So I'll talk about what's been going on. And just basically we're into the sort of the winter wrap down, so I'll give you some winter tips as well. So let's get on with it then. So I keep saying so a lot, but anyway, I bought a new chainsaw. So I bought the MSA 200, I think, or something like that. It's like the mid-range AP chainsaw. I bought it and I got this is a shout out, by the way. So I bought it and I got the still connected thing, so it's got a full 3-year warranty. Now this isn't me. When I bought it, I had an email off Still the next day, and it said that they're running the Still promotion offer for the chainsaws. So I thought, oh brilliant, I'll be able, should I have, or will I be able to get something back off it? So I rung up the dealer that I bought it from, and there was miscommunication. I think it's miscommunication on my part. It was so how they explained it to me. They said something along the lines of it's only for participating stores, for participating dealers, and that how they order things determines if they can give the offer out. And they said that when they order it, it should come with it in the box, but it hasn't. Now I got like I said, I misheard it. So I thought, oh, okay, well, I'll just ring Still up and have a chat with them and see, if there's any way of claiming it, basically. Because if they haven't received it and it's in the offer, then maybe I can receive it. And this is what I say about, you don't ask, you don't get. So I rung up Still and I spoke to a chap, and I've spoken to him in the past about things. And this is why I will always recommend good companies, because good companies stand by you. Yes, big companies like O2, I've been with them for 20 plus years. They don't give a shit if I cancel. And most companies don't, but it's nice when companies do care, and it's nice when, they're big enough to sort of, look after you, but they're small enough to remember you. And this chap remembered me from this previous issue I had. And I spoke to him and I said to him, and he said, oh, look, I'll leave it with me. I'll chase it up for you. And he rung me back up and he said that, so this is fully how I interpret it now, is not all dealers do the deals what Still gives out. It's only participating dealers. And a participating dealer, that when they order it, they will get the stock assigned with it. So basically it'll all come in the box together. If it's not a participating dealer, they just buy the saws in loose, I think, something like that. I said, okay, that's no problem. This is after the fact, and this is, after he told me this, after he said to me that basically, it's not a participating dealer, but because you've bought from us in the past, a lot of stuff, we'll send it out to you anyway. And you know what, I was really taken aback with that. I thought, it's a nice thing, that is, and I do believe credit where credit's due. So yeah, big shout out to Still. Can't knock them at all. Fantastic company. This isn't, sponsored or plug. It's just, I genuinely do believe in recommending good companies. So I've had a few people reach out and ask about gutter clearing. So what I'm going to do is I'm putting together a podcast talking about it. Now, I did my gutter clearing as a way of making more money over the winter. And I'll tell you one thing, yes, it's a way of making more money, but as soon as winter comes, you are hooped. So I've got gutter jobs now and I'm having to cancel them because they're frozen. I cancelled a job for tomorrow because we've had such a hard frost that whatever's in them gutters is not coming out with a gutter vac. So if you're thinking about doing gutter clearances, my advice to you is, yes, it's a fantastic add-on. It's a good money maker. It's a good add-on. You know, it does meet up quite nicely. You know, there's good crossover. It's not like you're doing something totally alien. But, you know, if you're thinking, oh, that'll keep me busy December, January, February, it could. But just remember, you're working around the weather. And that's something else I'll talk about in a little bit. So what I've done is I'm going to do a separate podcast. And I've actually filmed a couple of podcasts. And I'm going to put them out as bonus episodes. So if it is that you've got any subjects, it's basically, now I'm getting a little bit more free time. If you've got a subject that you want discussing, then just an episode talking about gutters. I've done it, but you get what I mean. I've done an episode talking solely about Facebook. I call it something like Facebook for Dummies, basically. Free Facebook for Dummies. It's not just paid Facebook, because I don't know anything about it. So again, I've done a couple of sort of things on that. So if you've got any topic ideas, do it. I don't mind at all. I have got some different content coming up. So I've got a big sort of garden tidy up what I've got to get cracked on with next week. There's another job coming. So a chap's moved into a new house. And basically, a lot of stuff needs doing to it. So I'm going to sort of put together a video with that, hopefully. And that should be quite interesting. Literally, because I think he wants to soffits and the fascias doing in the garden. So that should be quite interesting. I don't know what state it's in. But he said it needs a bit of work doing. So probably something along the lines of that. I've got a couple of review videos coming up. Like I said, let me know if you want to see anything thingy, really. I've got to rip out the green van. It's just, I don't know what's going on in there. I don't know whether there's a leak somewhere, but I just keep finding water. And also, with doing the camper van conversion, I've got a load of sound deadening, so I'm gonna rip the van out over winter, and then I'm gonna change the layout a little bit because I'm happy with it, but I want to make it a little bit better. So I'll probably do a video about that as well, just getting it all tidied out, stuff like that, and just making it a little bit better. Well, I say better in air quotes. We will see on it. So that's another sort of idea. On top of that, I'm hoping to get away in the camper van. So I've got a couple of YouTubey people that I'll probably like to sort of meet on the way, and just people I've met through YouTube. Just nice to have a catch up, really. So we're getting into winter, and oh my god, it is so cold. I always forget just how cold winters get. Don't get me wrong, we aren't in Siberia or Canada or anywhere blooming cold, but the truth is because we don't get much cold, when it comes, it sort of shocks us. Don't get me wrong, I'm not one of them idiots that as soon as the snow comes, I think, you know what, I'll go for a drive and clog the roads. I know how to drive in the snow, and I respect driving in the snow, but it always surprises me when we have a proper frost, just how cold it gets. So at the moment, I'm 3 layers. I've got t-shirt, jumper and hoodie on and a hat. It's just so unbelievably cold, and I'll be honest with you, I look an idiot. I put my bob hat over my earmuffs and I look an idiot. And there's one thing, I'll tell you this for free, no one cares. No one looks at me. If they do, I don't notice it. But what I'm saying is if you have to wrap up warm, do it. Don't think, oh, I've got a bob hat on, people look at me funny. No one cares. No one cares at all. So, customer-wise, everything's going okay. It's a shame, really, because, and this is the thing, I suppose in any sort of hospital, I suppose in anything, really, death's a reality. But, not so much in our industry. And, one of my customers, she's dying, basically. She told me she's dying. And it's a bit awkward, really, because she told me, she's like, I've not told my family yet. Oh, have you told me? Like, I'm sorry. But I think they all know now anyway. I'm like, great. But I don't speak to the family, so I'm not in the middle of anything. And I'll be honest with you, it's pretty upsetting because every time I go, she looks like she's dying. I'm not, how I sort of see sickness, and this is the thing, from my experience of speaking to people with illnesses, degenerative diseases, they don't like to be reminded of it. They don't like to be held with kid gloves. They like it to be says how it is. And my little short, well, not battle, but, a couple of years ago I had that perforated bowel, and, that was a bit sketchy. And for me, I don't joke about illnesses, but, as I said, my experience is people don't like to, they don't want you to make fun of it, but they don't want you to be funny about it or quiet about it, because it's more upsetting. It's like as if it's something dirty, So, it is upsetting, seeing these people, seeing this gardening customer, getting a bit worse every time. It's like, when you leave a banana in a fruit bowl. I know it sounds horrible, but, And then one of my other customers, I went to her today, and you know what? She's a lovely lady, proper nice. And, she's told me to, I'm hoping not to bring the podcast down, but I'll get through to it in a little bit. I'll bring it round, don't worry. And she told me, she says that, she's having problems, she's got heart failure, she's got all these issues, and she says she's refusing treatment now because she doesn't want any more. It's knocking her around. She just wants to die at home. And it's horrible, and again, she looks worse and worse every time I see her. But, well, it is what it is, isn't it, really? I know it sounds horrible, but this is why I say, you've got to live your life. You really have. You've got to go out there and, it's like I'm 35, but, it's like 2 years ago, I woke up and I felt sick, and then I was off for a week, and then I felt really sick. I went to hospital, and they were like, yeah, you got a perforated bowel, and then it was intensive care for 2 days, and then it was waking up with a colostomy bag, It's shit. But that comes out of nowhere. That wasn't lifestyle, that wasn't, doing something stupid. That just happened with no build up, nothing. It just happened. And this is the thing, you've got to live your life. The only solace I take, and this sounds horrible, but again, everybody agrees with me on this, is there's always somebody worse off than you. A friend of mine's got MS, and he went from being, and I'm not saying this in a derogatory way, he went from being, able to do anything to, in a diminished capacity. But he is the hardest grafting bloke, even now it doesn't it limits him, but, he gets stuff done, and he's busy, and he keeps himself busy. But, he said to himself he goes for an infusion every year, and it knocks him about, twice a year. And he says, the last time he went, the first time he went, he thought it was all very bad and horrible. But the woman in the next cubicle, she was having an infusion because her skin keeps falling off. So, I'm not laughing at the situation. Well, I am. I'm not laughing to make fun at the lady. But this is it. There is always somebody worse off than you. And you, like I said, live your life, guys. You really, really got to, because, it's so short and it's so fleeting. I'm trying not to make this a depressing episode, but, it is. And with doing the house clearances, you spend all your life, and then if you put everything into a property, everything into possessions instead of living and going out there, ultimately it'll just end up in the bin or being sold by somebody, or the family members picking over it and then throwing the rest away. I tell you what a proper depressing start to this episode. But I'm sorry, it is what it is. It's humans, it just happens, doesn't it? So I had an interesting conversation with a customer the other day, and it's like, so have you ever had it where people have asked for a price, but they don't want to let you see the job, and they want to be sketchy about the job? So my customer, she wanted a price. So her friend needs a gardener. Her friends live about an hour away, according to her. And it's in a village I've never even heard of. She said to me that there's basically their property is completely surrounded by trees. So it needs, and it's full of leaves. But she said to me, he said he's been diagnosed with something, so he's poorly now. His gutters are full, so they'll need emptying, but he doesn't need them doing till this time next year. I'm like, okay, that doesn't make any sense what you've just said to me, but we'll roll with it. So I said to her, okay, and she said, well, is there any way you can give a price? And I said, well, and I said at the very least, if you tell them to send me their address and some pictures, I'll be able to get closer to it. She says, oh no, they don't want people knowing their address. I'm like, well, they're an hour away. What do you think I'm going to do? Drive an hour to nick the garden gnomes? So I says to her, well, Luke, based on what you've told me, based on the fact that it's a big house, so it's going to be a big gutter job, the gutters are full, that's irregardless anyway. But it's the leaves, it's the waste, it's the fact that, they probably want some gardening doing. So I'll be honest with you, all that, an hour there, an hour back, trailer waste, van full of waste. I gave her a price, so I said to it be between $6 to $7.50. And she's like, oh, that's all right. And then I'm thinking she's misheard that somehow and thought £6. In the end, she thought I'd said £60 to £75. And I'm thinking, what planet are you on? There's no way anybody would do any form of work like that. There's nothing. It's not even minimum. Anyway, so I said between 600 to 750. 750. So she said she's going to have a word. I'm not holding out hope, if I'm being honest with you. I don't agree in giving people the, in air quotes, fuck off price. But sometimes when you are literally quoting blind and going in completely blind, I'll be honest with you, you've got to just cover your own back. I had a chap ring me up. Oh God, this has been going on for about a month ago. A chap rung me up. He says, I need a gardener for next year. Would you be able to come and have a look at the job? So I said to him that, are we talking January, December? No, this time next year. So he wants a job doing in November 2026. I said, well, what type of job is it? He says, well, we just need somebody to come regular. So basically it's garden maintenance. So I said to him, okay, that's no problem at all. I says, but I will only quote and visit a job before the job is to be completed. A few weeks before. I said, there's no way I can quote it now. I said, also, a lot can change in a year, and a lot can. They might even move. You just don't know what will happen in a year, and I don't want to make a commitment or start to form a commitment. I said to it, is there any work that needs doing now, and I can come and give you a price? So no, we all need it next year, a year from now, 12 months from now. So I said to him, I'm sorry, but that's not how I operate my business. So I reiterated again and basically said that I will come to you when if anything comes up work-wise that you need doing now, I'll come to you. I says, but if not, I will see you, start of November 2026. Oh, okay then, and no problem. Phone call about a week later. It was a different number. It was his missus this time. Oh, SGM Sam. We're just checking to see when you're coming to have a look at this job. Same conversation again. Oh, okay. I don't know what's gone on because my husband thinks you're coming, you see. I was expecting her to say, we've been waiting in all week for you, but she didn't. So I said, no. I said, I did explain to your husband on, how I quote as, due to everything, that I can only really quote, preferably a couple of weeks before a job or a little bit more. Oh, okay, well, anyway. Week later, husband rung this time. Hi Sam, Mr. SGM, whatever. I think there's been a bit of miscommunication. My missus has spoke to you and she says you're not going to come and look at the job. Are you not interested in this job? I'm like, and his tone was different. His tone was a little bit shitty as well, and I don't like that. I says, no. I says, it's literally, at this point in time, I'm not mincing my words. I said, we've had this conversation. I've had this conversation 3 times now with you. I said, I'm not quoting for a job that's 12 months away. And it's garden. It's not like I'm putting a patio in or an extension. It's garden maintenance. So he took it, but he wasn't shitty, but you could tell he was getting. Like I said, And this is the thing, you don't know what's going on in people's lives. He could be having a gutful from his missus, he could have dementia, she could have dementia, you just don't know, and this is why you've got to be professional, because you never know. You just don't know what, as I said, it is going through people's heads. So that was that conversation. So that's about it. But I have been thinking this year, I did a video talking about this. This year has been a good year to me in the business. November so far, it's the 21st today. It's shaping up to be the best November on record. It's been a really, really good month. I'll be honest with you, December is looking quiet. But when I look at what I earned November and December, I have earned more as of now than I have for November and December combined last year. So I'll be honest with you, I try and look ahead in my business, but sometimes I only really look a month ahead at a time, especially when it comes to work. I'll be honest with you, I've got work booked in, not a huge amount, but I've got, enough to keep the wolves from the door. So if it is that I don't get much work, much more than that, I'm happy with that. I'm willing to take it off, basically. So all the little sort of wrappy-uppy jobs are sort of done. I've got all my little bill money paid off to pay all my stuff off at the end of this month. I've got the camper van in for its service on the Tuesday, so that's going to be all done and dusted, all being well. I've also got the green van going in for its service on, I think it's December. It's at some point in December, and I'm hoping to get the MOT done at the same time, and then that's all done and dusted, because the plans is basically to get out and about in January and February if I can. So money's put aside. I'm hoping whatever else I make extra in November, just to squirrel a little bit away for winter. And I always say this to people: whatever you are thinking of doing, if you're thinking of doing additional services, if you're thinking of offering this and that, my advice to you is to put money away first. So if you're thinking, right, winter is a bit crap, what I want to do next season is I want to, say, look into the gutters, look into laundry, anything. My advice to you is to put a couple of grand away, whatever you need, 3-4 grand, get that away, and then look at doing the additional services and the additional expense, basically. As I said, I have got a little mini episode coming out talking all about the gutters. My advice, and I'll give you this quickly now, if you're going to do the gutter route, get good equipment. I've used Spinner Clean. Spinner Clean's a good company. There's GVS, Gut Vacuum System. Those are the only two I would recommend. You see B&Q and Screwfix selling gutter vacs. They're cheap, they're nasty. There's blokes out there that have used them, and it's all the common consensus. It's cheap parts, nasty poles, and this is the thing, the poles, if they're aluminium, you probably think that's okay, but they're heavy, they're bloody cold, and like I said, just spend that little bit more and you'll get a lot more in return. So anyway, that's that plug over for those two. I have been sharing recently on the social pages so there's another podcast I listen to called the Uncleanables Podcast, and they're it's two guys. They've got probably, I would describe, my sense of humour, and I think if I had an amigo, it would be exactly the same, basically. It's a lot of jokes, a lot of banter, but in amongst all that, there's some really, really, really good business advice. And if you're looking at taking your business to the next step, you're probably thinking, well, I don't want to be a window cleaner. No, what they talk about will work for you. Cleaning windows, cutting lawns, same business model, same structure to an extent. And as I said, listen to the podcast. You'll have a good laugh, but also you'll get something from it. So the buzzword for this episode is progression. Progression is one of my favouriteest words. So look up the definition of progression and you'll start to realise how quickly it applies to your business. Now, a little sip of my tea. So I think in this industry, I think it is a progressive industry. Don't get me wrong. You see some dinosaurs that, and I'm not getting into the cordless versus petrol argument, but you see blokes, women gardeners that have like, oh, I've had this strimmer for 20 years, it's fine. I've used this pair of step ladders, it's fine. I don't need them those fancy ladders with extendable feet. I don't need the Wolf Garten stuff. I don't want to do Facebook advertising. I don't need to. I don't do any advertising. I'm fine with what I've got. That's fine. But I think the people that I see where this probably applies to all of you guys, because I genuinely believe if people are watching other gardeners, especially this content, where you're not necessarily watching somebody work, you're not watching the epic transformation videos. There's no harm in them, by the way. You're listening to the nitty gritty. I genuinely think you're in the camp that I'm in, which is camp progression, where you've got your finger on the pulse on what's going on in this industry. You will see that, they've, still have released this new tool, you've bought it. It's like cordless. I'm not trying to turn it into cordless versus petrol. Every single cordless tool that I've bought has been better. There's been more features, better build quality, more power, more reliability, better user experience than the previous cordless model I've bought. If you buy a petrol tool, in my container I've got all of my old petrol gear. I need to fish it out and sell it actually. But if I look at that petrol gear and then take it into the dealer and then pick up a new, so like my old handheld blower, and I pick a new handheld blower up, it would be exactly the same. Now don't get me wrong, it still blows, it still runs, it still starts, but you can't beat the upgrades you get in air quotes with the cordless. And don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to turn it into that conversation. It's like still have just released the BR600, equivalent cordless blower. Don't get a cordless backpack blower. It takes 2 AP500 batteries. Don't get me wrong, it looks a fantastic bit of kit, but I think it's got a runtime of 18 minutes. So, there'll be people out there that will shout that down. That's not my cup of tea personally. I don't think I would ever look at getting something like that. I have got the batteries. Well, I haven't. I've got batteries, but not enough to keep something like that going. And for me now, with getting a bit bigger jobs and more commercial sites, I've noticed that when I'm using the blower, I'm using it for, quite a bit of time, to be fair. And, I don't think 18 minutes would be enough, really. but anyway. But you can see what I mean. And the thing is, maybe the next one they do would be capable of doing 40 minutes. And then the next one. But I do think there is certain tools that you can't complain when it comes to cordless. But then there's certain tools like mowers and blowers that, it's not quite there yet. But who knows where it will be. So, yeah, like I said, progression, I think it's so important. It's, I apply it to everything, not just, what I've got now, what I've got in the future. Like customers, my customer, and again, there's another little old saying for you here, is your best customer will eventually become your worst customer. And I heard that years ago. And what it means, basically, is that when you think about your customer base from when you first started, when I look at my, in air quotes, best customers, and when I compare them to now, they're not even on the same planet. I used to think Brenda and Charlie were like the best customers. They aren't. They're harrowing. That's like my Vietnam, if I'm being honest with you. So, even with customers, you want to be improving, you want to be adding, you want to be upgrading. Everything, it's progression. I'd like to think I'm a lot, further along because of it. And like I said at the start, the people watching this, you guys watching this, you guys that are watching the behind the scenes of gardening businesses, you're absorbing all this. You're watching for, and odds on, if you watch somebody who's running, I'm not class, I think my business is successful, but like Scott, SE Landscaping, when you hear how he runs his business, a big successful business, or you look at like J-Rock on YouTube and Instagram, and all these other big companies, if you copy what they're working or look at what worked for them and, apply it to your business, don't just straight up copy it. But odds on, if it's worked for them, it could work for you, or parts of it might work for you. Parts of it might improve your business. Yeah, as I said, don't be afraid to. And even in my personal life, I would never ever dream of my business being in the point it is now. Never, not on this earth. If you'd have said to me, Sam, where do you think your business will be like in 5 years? Don't get me wrong, I've always sort of grafted, and I always thought, you know what, but I don't think it'd be, if I'm thinking to myself, would I think my business is where it is now? I don't know, probably not, because, I'm not a pessimistic guy, but the business is doing so much better than I thought. And also myself, like, I started this year 26 stone 6. I'm 20 stone 2 now. And, nearly 6.5 stone down. I'm hoping to get just before Christmas, and I always leave the personal chat towards the end. I'm hoping, my goal for Christmas is, I'm not, with my weight loss, I've not been like smashing it, I've not been starving myself. I'm hoping to get before Christmas to probably under 20 stone, as under as I can get, because it's Christmas. I'm expecting to put a little bit of weight on. Not a huge amount, I've definitely got a lot more self-control now, but I'm hoping by Christmas that I've got that grace period where, if I do put a bit of weight on, it's not going to be harrowing, it's not going to be horrific, and then I can get back on it. It's a bit sad, really. I'm actually thinking about joining a gym. And as well, it's like when I go away on holiday now, I'm noticing that, before when I went away on holiday a year ago, I'd be planning trips around food. I'd be looking at pubs and restaurants and farm shops and delis, and I'd be thinking when I go away, I can cook this and I can cook that and I can enjoy this food. Now I'm thinking, oh shit, I can walk today. I'm starting walking more, I'm starting exploring. I'm looking at places with interesting walks. It is, you change, you really, really do. And this is the thing that I got super morbid, during the start. But, for me anyway, I do worry about I do think, and I'm going off on a sidetrack here, but I think when you're a bigger person, people judge you. Now, don't get me wrong, stereotyping and first impressions are a powerful tool, because odds on, they don't lie. But I do feel that people of a certain size are judged. And I think if you think that somebody who's overweight, like I was 26, nearly 26.5 stone, I'm a big bloke. But people, my size, if you think you got fat, and I'll tell you how I got fat in a bit. If you think people, that size are all lazy and they've all got to say that way because they just sit and eat, grab bags of crisps all the time and do fuck all, you're wrong. There's a multitude of reasons. I was a functionally fit, morbidly obese person. Always been in good health, bloods and everything, other than having that burst bowel. But other than that, I've always been okay. But the thing is, it's like, what was I saying now? So that's it. So I got overweight because I was consistently eating over my daily calorie allowance or my weekly calorie allowance. I wasn't doing that by eating junk food. I was doing that by, I've always cooked from fresh. It was just by eating that little bit more every single day. You can get fat off having a British diet, which is, meat and 2 veg, but by having a little bit extra every day. And that's how I got fat. So I'm having to change how I look at food. And I am glad, I really am. One of my customers, she said to me the other day, and it just makes me chuckle. Maybe I should be, happy about this, I don't know. But she said to me, because I've been tying about my operation, so I've got to go for my consultant appointment in December. And he's going to tell me, there and then if I'm going to have the op this year or next year. I've got a feeling it's going to be this time next year because of how the NHS is. But we'll see, fingers crossed. So I was telling her about that, and I says to her that I'm hoping when I go hospital, because again, if you want to feel fat, go hospital. It's like, It's like when I was in hospital, they were like, we'll get you a bigger bed. I'm like, I don't need a bigger bed, I'm fine. No, we'll get you one so you're more comfortable. I'm like, I've been lying on this all day, love, I'm comfortable. And of course, when they put you in one of those, like, and they put me in one of those, like, super morbidly obese beds, and it was harrowing. People were like, coming up to, like, the nurses when they do them, like, health checks on you. She went, so how are you in your day-to-day life? Are you able to walk? Do you have a good level of mobility? I'm like, look, darling, I'm a gardener. Those are my work boots down there. But anyway, but like I said, it's again, I'm going off on distractions here. I'm so bad for this. But basically, look after yourself, guys. You really do. I've learned. I've been lucky. I've avoided diabetes. I've avoided anything bad. Don't get me wrong. Every so often as I go out my van, my knee hurts a little bit, but I'm hoping to, scrape by. That's what I was saying. So anyway, this customer, she said to me, so I said to her, so I'm hoping when I go hospital, it'll be a lot better this time because I've lost some weight. She goes, you've lost some weight? I says, yeah, I'm 6 stone down. Oh, I wouldn't have said you even lost a stone. And she wasn't being rude, she was just being old person rude. I says, yeah, so 6 stone down. But like I said, guys, you've got to have a laugh, haven't you, about it. So as I said, money's put aside, bills are put aside, getting stuck into things as usual. And yeah, like I said, just plodding on, getting stuck into things. So, like I said, I'm going to leave this episode here. I know it got a little bit morbid during the beginning, but hopefully you can see how I sort of form things in terms of you've got to take things seriously, but also you've got to have a good bit of humour. You really have. You've got to be able to laugh at things and, well, I'll let you work that out. But as usual, guys, have a good day and keep on gardening.